And good morning, everybody, on this Tuesday, the 31st of July, 2018. Man, I can't believe it's going to be August tomorrow. This year is just flying by. Of course, for the older folks, that's always the case. Time goes by real fast. Younger folks who don't have quite as many decades behind them, to them, it's still kind of going slow, especially the youngsters, the real youngsters. I think most of you can remember when you were little growing up, and it just seemed like, that day that you were waiting for was so way off, even if it was just a day or two away, right? I remember this one time, there was a show that came out. I think they did a remake of it here a few years back, maybe within the last couple of years. Anyway, it was called King Kong versus Godzilla. And, we saw that it was going to be at the theater. We were just little kids, my brother and myself. And, we were looking forward to that so much. And I think it was just like 2 days away that the movie was going to be available. And it just seemed to drag on and on and on. And then the day of the movie, we're really happy we're getting ready to go, but we got a little snappy with Mom. And that was the end of that. We didn't even get a chance to go see the movie. I remember crying my eyes out. I don't know how old I was. Probably, 5 or 6, something like that. I don't know. Maybe a little older. But anyway, the point was that time just took so long before, it arrived. And now, as you've heard several commentators say, so much happens within a day or so. What used to take a year maybe to do now happens in a week or even a day. I mean, it's just crazy how things have progressed. Hello, everyone. I'm Roy Potter. Welcome to the Potter Expositor. And, I decided not to do a whole lot today. I'm actually going to get into the chat here in just a few minutes because I don't want to lead the conversation too much today. And I do want it to be a conversation. Just to mention a few things because I think it's important. The shadow banning, the censorship that's going on. You see the denials and the twists of the language by Twitter and YouTube and Facebook and all of that. And what I mean by that is every profession has its own vocabulary. You have lawyers, and that's why if you go into court and you don't know what their vocabulary is, you're already at a disadvantage because they will, I think I've explained before, if you say that you're a person, then you're identifying yourself in a legal language that doesn't mean what you might hope that it means in that setting. Medical profession, I think all of you know that can get really crazy. And unfortunately, the lawyers have done the same thing for the social engineering, and that's what they are, social engineering companies, but these social justice, social media companies. They can say that they're not shadow banning because they call it something else, just like the government and people who dismiss the chemtrail problem will say, well, there are no chemtrails because officially they're not called chemtrails. They're called, amongst some other things, as most of you know by now, stratospheric aerosol injection. So they can deny based on what you say. So we see the shadow banning. We know what's happening, and we're trying to call it out. And finally, Alex Jones, bless his heart. No matter how you feel about Alex, and I have my issues with him too, but you got to remember, even if he had taken some of his ideas from Bill Cooper, which no doubt he did, and I think Bill Cooper said as much. The fact is that Alex had the means and the drive to put this thing in the main consciousness of people, and that took a lot of effort. So, and now he's got himself into a situation. Here I go, diverging again. Got himself into a situation where I think he tried to grow too fast. You remember he was talking about expanding more reporters and doing this and doing that, when really I think it would have been better if he had just kind of stayed where he was. I'm not saying that growth isn't important, but if you try to grow too fast, you can hurt yourself, and then selling product becomes more important than the message that you have out there. And his product kind of meshes with his message, but it's like I've said for a long time. It's like listening to one run-on continuous commercial on Infowars, and that's sad. It was unfortunate that he got himself in that position. So he's probably going to have to cut back a little bit. He was talking about shutting down completely yesterday because of all the attacks against him, and that's really what I wanted to talk about. The attacks against Alex have been just horrible, and others as well. So at any rate, there are a lot of these things occurring with the censorship, and of course we know that they've attacked Alex. They've attacked all of us, really, in one way or another. And then finally, Alex had, I guess it's called the Adams Report. Mike Adams wrote up a letter. Actually, I guess it's like a 30-page document explaining how this censorship is occurring and who's doing it and all of that, and got it into the hands of President Trump, amongst a lot of other people. And Matt Gaetz, who sometimes he's a congressman, sometimes I trust him, sometimes I don't. I'm not sure about him. I've praised him in the past, but then I see certain things happen, and I'm not really sure about Gaetz. But at any rate, Gaetz at first said, they have a right to do that. They're a private company, kind of covering for them, forgetting where they got their money from, which was the CIA and DARPA, etc., talking about the social platforms. And the fact that they stole it from Michael McKibben, the entire idea and the technology for it. But at any rate, so Mike Adams drew this thing up and they submitted it. And basically, if Trump wasn't really aware of how extensive it is, even though they've been messing with him, he does now. And of course, last week you saw that he's come out and said that they're going to look into it. And of course, different members of Congress and the Senate are doing the same thing. Long overdue. This should have been one of the initial assaults by Jeff Sessions, especially when he recused himself and had all that time on his hands. He should have gone right after this antitrust problem with the social media platforms. But even now, he's resisting doing that. Even now, he's resisting it. So, at any rate, that's a real problem, because without a First Amendment and the respect for the First Amendment, I don't care if you're a private company or not. I remember, as an example, well, I don't know if I should go into that. I'll just say that a company tried to hold me accountable for saying I was interviewed by a rather popular television show at one point, and the company I was working for at the time found that reprehensible and tried to cause me trouble for it. And it had nothing to do with them. I didn't mention their name. I didn't. It had nothing to do about them. It was on my own time, and yet they still tried to cause problems with me about it. And that's wrong. That's just wrong, especially when, it's not like I was, well, at any rate, the point is that it was wrong to do. And now, of course, these social media platforms are doing that to everybody in one way or the other. And they're using different terms to accomplish it, to try to keep the truth of the matter from us. But at any rate, so now apparently some members of the federal government, at least, are starting to look at this. And I'm afraid it's a little too late. This is one of the things Sessions should have been on, supporting the First Amendment and the Second Amendment right out the gate. And he wasn't. Quite to the contrary. And now he's more worried about religious, this move on religious institutions to supposedly protect them, when we've already got the First Amendment that says that. But as some other commentators have explained, and I'm worried about this too, I'm concerned that this is a move to protect the political movement of Islam, not the religious movement of Islam, which is not really what it is, but the political protection for this. If they're going to do that, they should protect Christianity. Under the same auspices, they could say the same thing about Christianity, but of course they're not doing that. They'll say that this is to do that, but I smell some bad air on this one, and I think some other people do. Jeff Sessions said just go back to the First Amendment, leave it at that, and get to really defending the First and Second Amendments and go after the cabal, so to speak. But that's not happening. Yeah, I got sidetracked. Anyway, so we might see some things there. 0 Hour 1 did some pretty good research on how Twitter is using shadow banning, and it's by location. It's by your location. You go to your location map, and if you change your location, and there's one other thing, and I forget what it is right now, you can probably beat the shadow ban if that's a concern to you. Go to 0 Hour One's YouTube channel, and he talks about beating Twitter. And I'm sorry I don't have the name for it because, like I said, this isn't scripted, and it just kind of came to me here. But he did find that changing your location, and there's one other thing that you can change. I should have remembered what this was prior to this. Let me just see if I can see it, what it is on my phone. And you can get them to get off your back, to at least put it off. I'm sure that they'll figure it out again later. But if you follow through on that, anyway, location's one of the things you can use. If you turn that off or change it, actually changing it's better. If you change it to another country, if you even have to, and that'll help. And then there's one other thing that he talks about. So please go look at his information, and he'll tell you how to do that. It's really not that complicated. Maybe for baby boomers like myself, but okay. Leaks. Wow. I mentioned this the other day in a short live stream. Maybe it was a long one, I don't remember. But I thought I'd bring it up again today because it's so important. Dan Bongino, who has been following this entire debacle going on in the Russian collusion nonsense, and I told you about, that now that the Carter Page situation, the dossier deal, has been totally debunked, totally shown to be a fraud and illegal with the FISA documents. They're now going back to Papadopoulos, and then he says they'll jump back and forth. Remember when I had that conversation? And I also talked a little bit about the leaks, and he is fairly certain. I listened to him, I think it was last night or the night before last, probably last night. And he said that he has no doubt that these different FISA releases and also some of the other things that have been given to Congress, to everybody actually who's seen it, has been designed to find out where the leaks are. A very sophisticated operation, and this is where I want to go with it because I think it's important. This guy Wolf, who was the staffer for the Senate Intelligence Committee, who was basically stung by the feds and over his giving this, supposedly leaking this information to a reporter girlfriend of his. Now we're looking at it, and I think this is the crux of this thing, that this was in fact a sting of the members of the Senate Intelligence Committee. Hey, if the shoe fits, wear it, right? And so he made the point. He says, why wasn't Wolf charged with leaking, classified information? That's not what he's charged with. He was charged with lying to the FBI. Why? Well, it's because the lies actually come from, he's apparently told to do that. This is all conjecture at this point, but dang, it makes a lot of sense. That members of the Senate Intelligence Committee are actually behind this, and that he actually blew the whistle on it, and they did this sting operation. Now, considering what I said before about, these sting operations that I'm, Mueller being, a big sting operation, all that, no, I don't buy that. But this one, possibly. And if, in fact, it turns out to be that, it's a brilliant maneuver. They thought, the Senate Intelligence Committee, I'm sure, thought that they had it in the bag because they thought they controlled everything. And there are some problems with the NSA still. We might get into that today. We might not. I don't know. But there are some problems at the NSA. There's certainly problems at the CIA and of course the FBI, etc. But apparently there were some good hats in the NSA that didn't cloud the issue. Let's put it that way, and remain loyal to President Trump after Rogers left. And I think Rogers is probably doing some things behind the scenes. But I don't want to get into that today either. But there is a rogue element in the NSA still, much different than the fact that or the evidence that the FBI and the CIA are almost totally rogue. And Matt Bracken will agree with me on that. I've got one of his statements today I'm going to read to you, and he and I have both been saying the same thing for a long time, that almost the entire institution of the FBI and of the CIA are corrupt. But at any rate, so we think that this group of NSA have they've basically split there. That there is a rogue unit that's still doing some bad stuff to try to hurt Trump and the restoration of the constitutional republic, and then the rest of the NSA that might be doing pretty well. I don't know what the the proportions are or the percentages or how that's divided up, but there's some evidence to suggest that's going on. So the leaks have been found in the Senate Intelligence Committee, and apparently, according to Dan Bongino, that's why you're not hearing much from them right now. They're going, their guarantee of safety and security in doing their little nasty deeds that they thought would be covered up with the intelligence community on their side. Now they find out they may have overestimated that. Vaccines are kind of a problem still. I did hear Alex Jones mention that yesterday, and it's really getting out of control. I don't want to get into a lot of depth on that either, but of course, mandatory vaccines, the entire compulsory program, has a lot of legal, moral, and other factors to it that are really impeding a lot of us, subjecting us to diseases and other things that, it's interesting to me that they want to push this vaccine thing, but they bring immigrants into the country and not even checking them. So, it's the old, don't use tobacco, but we're going to, I'm probably going to get some farmers upset at me here, but we're going to subsidize farmers who grow tobacco. It's this hypocrisy in the government. Some people say, no, it's balance. No, it's hypocrisy. And we're seeing it again now. But at any rate, the vaccine thing is basically a problem. It's kind of rearing its ugly head again. We were hoping, of course, Trump can't do everything, and I don't want to say that, but I want to keep some of these things up in the forefront so that we don't forget them. We don't want to get that tunnel vision I'm talking about, which was the purpose of a particular LARP out there, is to get you focused in a particular direction, and forget things like 9/11, and forget things like vaccines, and forget things like 5G and that stuff, because that's where the real war is taking place. The attacks on the First and Second Amendment, for instance, that kind of thing. So at any rate, I wanted to bring that up with the Senate Intelligence Committee. Probably, at least certain members of it probably going, we got caught. And the vaccine thing, I wanted to bring the vaccine thing up as well, sorry, because that's so important still. It's still something we need to keep in front of our concerns. We got to live life, you can't sit there and worry about the roof falling down, the sky falling down all the time. But this is a real war. It's really obvious what the cabal is about, and I'm using that instead of some of the other terms you use because I think it's so much more sinister, even more sinister than the New World Order. The cabal sounds pretty good, and everything that they've done really has been to first of all tear down mankind's consciousness. The awareness, the development, they only want to talk about biological evolution, which of course is false anyway. And they don't want to talk about the spiritual evolution, the development of people. They want to control both of those things. And it was obvious that there have been some advances in our consciousness, in our awareness, in our understandings without their help. And they didn't like that, and so they're trying to stop it. So at any rate, vaccines are a part of that, etc. Okay, talking about the situation in Portland this Saturday, August 4th, that there's going to be a pro-Trump rally there. And Owen Schroyer on InfoWars as well talked about the situation where Antifa is now saying that they're going to bring arms. Well, they've kind of done that in the past. We've seen several demonstrations where they've shown up with shields and clubs and helmets. Kind of a passive-aggressive form of armaments. But there have been some other times where they've shown up with semi-automatic weapons and brandished them. And at this point, it looks like they're going to do it at this Portland rally on Saturday. For those of you who are taking part in that, I laud your courage and your willingness to speak out and use your First Amendment. But this is dangerous. I hope you understand. It's very dangerous. Because I think these people, because Trump is doing a super job and he's pulling ahead in the polls, even though they try to suppress him. With all the negativity that he has, I talked to my Republican insider yesterday. They said, Reagan went through something similar, but, he was getting maybe 60%, and I might be wrong on that, 60% negative press, and he was still, 40% in the polls as doing well. Well, here we're getting 90% plus negative on Trump by the MSM CIA, because they're the same thing. The MSM is nothing more than the propaganda arm of the CIA and the intelligence community and the deep state. Trump never quite goes that far, but that's what it is. He's at 90% or so of this negative information coming out about him, and he's still around 50% popularity in the polls, agreeing with his policies. Now, the interesting thing about that is what would happen if there was a slight shift in the mainstream media giving him some laudatory comments. What would happen? Well, the reality of that, first of all, it's probably higher than 50% anyway. But this Republican insider, who I'm still trying to get on, there's a reason why I haven't. He's a little concerned about being identified. So that's the reason why it hasn't happened yet. But sometimes the information I give you is actually coming from him like this. And he said that his popularity is probably more than 50%. But if this negative went away, he would probably be the most popular president in U.S. history. And I'd have to agree with him on that. So we're seeing this artificial lower numbers of appreciation for Trump on purpose, because it's, of course, a propaganda campaign to try to get you to go along with what you might consider to be the status quo. It's a manipulation, is what it is, and we have Congress to blame for that, because they did away with the law that prevented the IC, etc., from using propaganda against us, and the government in general, and even started funding the propaganda programs with the NDAA. That's the Congress doing that. And of course, again, it's because so many of them have been bought off by the IC and by the deep state. They don't work for us. They work for corporations and for nefarious activities, and certainly not for us. So at any rate, just be careful there in Portland. You're going to have apparently armed Antifa there, probably with firearms this time and edged weapons. Be very, very careful. The police, for instance, have not actually. Certain members of ICE have filed or they either are attempting to or they are going to file a lawsuit against Portland for not protecting them against these people. And the Portland police chief, I guess, is just ignoring it completely, and probably the mayor, and of course Napolitano's there at the University of Oregon in Portland, who is, I'm sure, going along with all this, as is Lynch and Loretta Lynch and Eric Holder and all that. So the danger level is very high there. So I don't want to tell you what to do. Showing up, I think, is something you need to do, but just be aware you're gonna have to take some extreme measures to protect yourselves. Okay, I won't tell you what those are, but you're just going to have to be very, very careful. Remember, Oregon is where Malheur took place. It's funny because you get these Antifa basically laying siege to the ICE buildings, and the federal government doesn't send in the FBI with SWAT teams and all that, but you get a bunch of cowboys out there in Malheur, and they kill one of them, Lavoy Finicum, and charge all the rest of them with all these horrendous, terrible things. And that with the local government assisting them instead of standing up for the people, doing the right thing. You see how everything's upside down here. Everything's upside down. So anyway, be careful in Portland there. I understand that could be a real problem, okay? If you have anybody, I don't know who's in charge of that, but if you know anybody who is, you got to tell them to use some tactical advantages. I won't tell you what those are, and I'm not saying to use firearms. I'm not saying that. There's some other things you can do to lessen your vulnerability, okay? And so be real careful. We don't want to see that. They don't care if they start a big fight and people get hurt. They don't care any longer. The government, the whole situation in the United States with the leftist Marxists has gotten to the point where they're willing to do this. It's not any longer about political discourse, and I've been saying for a long time that Trump has been trying to handle this as if he's in a political, ideological debate, and that's not what this is. This whole thing has been a coup by the IC and the deep state, the leftist Marxists who have been around for a long time. It is a coup. It is open warfare against the constitutional republic. They don't want to live underneath the constitutional republic. They want to destroy it. And to say it any other way is just fooling ourselves. Last thing I think I'll cover here officially are the fires. It's interesting. We had the situation in Toronto with the shooter, and they didn't want to identify him as being Muslim. And of course that's always going to be the case. It's just terrible that the governments, as I said in a video a few days ago, they not only can't protect you, they refuse to. And that's with this thing with Sessions going after this religious protection thing. I'm really nervous about what he's doing there. And then we see how Christians and conservatives are treated here by the leftist courts, etc., which Trump is trying to change. And of course, they look on it as being an attack on the Constitution, like the leftists, like they ever cared about the Constitution in the first place. You notice how they only use it when they think they can use it to their advantage. They don't give constitutional protections and understandings to other people just when they feel threatened. That's a Saul Alinsky tactic. They use your values against you, and that's exactly what's happening there. But at any rate, apparently they found a suspect in setting these fires in California, at least 5 of them. And I do believe this is a form of warfare. Now, the name of the individual that they're sending out here is a Brandon McGlover, I guess is his name. I don't know if I'm saying that right. They've arrested him, and that certainly doesn't sound Muslim to me. But remember, a lot of this recruitment has gone on, and sympathizers. And there's possibly some other reasons why these fires in California have been set, especially in the areas that they are. Now, the main thing is here that I wanted to say is that is probably not just an arsonist in the sense of, a fire lover. Okay? I'm not saying it isn't, but when we see these types of things, we've got to start looking at we really are in a war. And this may have been an intentional thing by the leftist Marxist, not just Islam, ISIS. Okay? Probably a ban for saying that. At this point, I really don't care. I think most of you know that. It'd actually be a relief in some respects. So at any rate, I think that's something that we need to look at. Fire is a weapon, and I think it's being used against us in California and possibly in other areas. And I heard another commentator say that, I wonder what else they're trying to do there with these fires. Are they trying to cover up evidence? And the suggestion was that they're trying to cover up evidence of different pedophile activities. I just throw that out there. There's a lot of false accusations, propaganda being thrown out there, a lot of names being dropped without any evidence, and you know how I feel about that. I've already told you. But fire is a good way to destroy evidence. As a matter of fact, that was one of the charges that they leveled against the Hammonds up in Malheur, who were not trying to. They used some statements that the younger Hammond guy had said, the son, against him, to say that he was to accuse him of using the fire that they started to cover up evidence. So you see, the government will use it when it's to their advantage, and I'm talking about the cabal, the deep state. When in fact the Hammonds had tried to start a backfire to keep the rest of their property from being burned, and it only burned 100 acres of the federal property. I mean, that's not a lot, not really, not under the circumstances, especially after what the BLM had done up there. And the BLM has lost control in their controlled burns more than once, and have destroyed homes and property and land they weren't supposed to, etc. But of course, the government was really after the Hammonds' land for the uranium and other resources, minerals and things up there. And that was the real impetus behind that. But you see, the point is, they used that charge of fire being a weapon, of covering up evidence. So that problem definitely exists. Okay, I know I'm not covering some other information that you guys want me to, so I'm going to the chat. And I'm sure I'll be asked about some things there. I'm very disappointed. I'll just say this up front. I'm very disappointed about how people jump on the trends for clicks and followers and money, the PayPal things and all that, and getting monetized on their channels. I understand that, it's kind of like the mainstream media. To give people the benefit of the doubt in this whole thing that's going on, I think most of you know what I'm talking about. Jumping on big stories is the way for news media outlets to make sure they get their revenue, and I understand that. And I'm not so much against that as I am that maybe they don't want to expose the fallacies in the accusations that are being made. They just want to jump on it, number one, because it goes along with the whole pedophile problem, which we know is a problem. But you can yell too loud. You can protest too much. You don't want to get into the same thing as the Salem witch trials. People started turning in witches just so that they could get their property. People who weren't witches, so they could get their property, defame them, get revenge, whatever. We're seeing the same thing now with with people attacking these different people and calling them pedophiles. We all know that Hollywood has a problem with pedophilia. I know that firsthand, okay? And human trafficking and some other things. We know that it's in government. We know that it's been the currency. I played a song. This has been about, 2 weeks ago, 3 weeks ago? Maybe longer. I left a concert, and on the way home I played some Yes songs. Do you remember that? And one of the Yes songs, one of the verses is, exchanges in the currency of humans bought and sold. I didn't choose that song just because I like it. I was trying to send a message, if any of you listen to that. It's on my drive home listening to Yes. And it's a video I put up about, I think it was about a month ago or so. It was a live stream in my car going back to Wyoming. And I played three songs on there from Yes. Rhythm of Love, this one, which for some reason I'm forgetting the name of it now. Shoot High and Aim Low. That's the name of it. And then I played another one which has to do with kind of romantic ideas. But at any rate, I didn't choose those songs by accident. There was a reason why they were on there, and that was it. Because even Yes talked about the exchanges and exchanges of the currency of humans bought and sold. So I know it exists. It's absolutely out there. I could tell you some firsthand stories that I saw. But then people think that I'm trying to be sensational, so I don't go there. But it does exist. I'm not saying that. What is wrong is that it becomes a feeding frenzy. First of all, to try to vindicate our accusations, and second of all, trending to get clicks, followers, etc., plus the money that's involved there. A lot of reasons psychologically, etc., to jump on this bandwagon. Again, in case David Seaman's watching this, I'm not saying that pedophilia isn't a problem. It absolutely is. It's the number one problem, I believe, in our society. I do believe that. But we have to be. We can't throw the Constitution. We can't claim to be following the Constitution and wanting to restore it, and then throw it away when it behests us. It helps us to do so in our biases. I don't know how else to say it. And so there have been some accusations made for various reasons, and you all know about that. And without evidence, I've said a long time, and I'll stand by this always. There's no such thing as guilt by association, not really. That's a weak argument that's used by the weak-minded and those who don't have evidence. As some of you may know, I mean, there was a comment the other day. I was going to say something about it. One of my friends brought it to my attention, but I don't like to give these things a lot of airtime. But some commenter on one of my live streams, probably on the comments afterwards, not on the chat, I don't remember, but accused me of being pedophilia. And there have been other people that have done that, and I'm not going to name who did it because I'm hoping that well, with one of them I don't care because he's a criminal anyway. But the other one is a well-known YouTuber, and he just bought into it based on incorrect information. Monograph has been on his butt for a number of things, for getting things wrong. Again, I'm not going to name who it is, but you can probably guess. But I have been accused of being a pedophile. I'm sorry, but my history is this, right? And I've said it before. I'm a committed heterosexual, number one. I'm a committed grown woman lover. Okay, it's the shape of the woman and her maturity and those things that I'm attracted to, not little kids. Right? Okay. I like to protect women and kids. There's none of this nonsense. About taking advantage of them. There's nothing in my background that even hints to that. Okay. But these false accusations, people making these false accusations, and that has happened, obviously. But I'm not. I am demonstrably not a pedophile, and yet they make these accusations because it's what's happening now. It's become a circus, and it's very sad to see that this is occurring. So, at any rate, I won't get into a whole lot of detail on that. I'll go to your chat now. I'll go to your comments, and if you bring up certain particular things there, I'll probably address them. So let's go and see what we got. Okay. Oh, thank you. First Planet 88. Very sad, Roy. Has a wonderful family and many grandchildren. You're okay, Roy. Don't play into the pigs. I appreciate that. I don't really know who you are, Finest Planet 88. But yeah, I had 11 kids. And I have like 18 grandchildren. People are going, oh my gosh, yeah. They're pretty special. I had one daughter that drowned in an accident in the Arkansas River on a recreational trip. There's some other activities there that are suspicious, but just the point that we lost her there. So I still have 10, out there doing things, and it's been quite incredible. That's by and large, it's been a real blessing. So I'll just leave it at that. Thank you for bringing that up. 11 kids, good Lord, yeah. I tell you that story in the Army? Everybody thinks that, like I said, they accuse me of being a pedophile and of all these other terrible things. Well, the Army knew about my background, As a matter of fact, they called me back in to active duty knowing my background. And, I eventually, of course, got a top secret SCI clearance and maintained that for a number of years. And, I was a straight shooter. I was lackluster, but I was a straight shooter. And at any rate, so you know, anyway, the point is that if there had been any of that in my background, it would have come out, okay, and it wasn't there. Okay, I'll just leave it at that. Yeah, start a soccer team. Yeah, I've actually used them in movies. I've used them as actors in movies. I mean, oh yeah, it's quite a deal. They're spread out a little bit, but yeah, we have a good time. We really do. Okay. Yeah, of course. Steve Smith, of course, I've heard of the book Tragedy and Hope. Yes, of course. And everyone should read that because it was well, it's over 1,000 pages, but it is a book that basically shows you the battle plan of the cabal. Yeah, for sure. Yeah. Oh, thank you. Joe Blow says, very sorry for the loss of your daughter. Well, thank you. You know, you can't go through life. As a matter of fact, I had some of my other kids say, when this happened, said, Dad, there's so many of us, something like this was bound to happen to one of us. And, you know, a lot of people have suffered that. Okay, a lot of people, not just me. But I think think about how God feels. I know people probably don't want me to bring God into this, but think about how God feels. And I know He's got the more eternal viewpoint of this, but when terrible things happen to us, maybe by necessity, but yeah, it's heart-wrenching. It is. So thank you. Yeah, Silent Weapons for Quiet Wars. Gregorio Cordoba's talking about that. Yes, and we're seeing that now, the entire thing with poisoning, with the 5G, with the propaganda, with the transgenderism. All of this is the pedophilia, although the pedophilia is used mostly to steal our kids, but it impacts mankind's consciousness across the board. All those are weapons. Yeah, Hebraic thought doesn't really include thinking bad things. Jesus kind of said, well, if you think bad things, then you'll do bad things. But original Hebraic thought was that you're still only held accountable for your actions. Why? Because we're all going to have dark thoughts. It's how we manage those dark thoughts and what we do with them. So yeah, you got to be aware that you have them, and you don't want to entertain them to any great degree. But a mere bad thought doesn't make you guilty of it. That's kind of a misinterpretation of what the scripture says, but definitely if you concentrate on it, if you feed it, what wolf you feed, that's where you go. Yeah, so we've got to be careful what we think, and they want to poison our minds so that we're all thinking these really bad things all the time. Look at the crap on TV and in the movies. It's not to uplift people. It used to be that authors and those types of people would write things to try to elevate our consciousness and our morals and those types of things. Boy, and that's not that way now. I mean, everybody, I guess, needs to dabble in a little black-sided stuff every once in a while. I won't go there, but nothing serious. Not where anybody gets hurt or that you stay there. But at any rate, yeah. Yeah, Avenatti, poof. Oh, you must be talking about. Yeah, I saw that yesterday. What do you want me to say about it? Obviously, Avenatti's an opportunist. The whole thing with Stormy Daniels. Trump is a stud. He and Melania's thing that they have to work out, and I'm confident that they already have. It's really none of our business. It should never have come up. But at any rate, they're trying to slander the president, of course, and make him look bad. But he's a man, and he's a real man. and those of you out there who want me to be politically correct and all that, my background tells me to be otherwise. Okay, no, he's a man's man, and that whole thing has to be done responsibly. There shouldn't be any fraud or deceit involved. But again, that's between him and Melania at this point, and it's none of the rest of our business. But Avenatti, of course, apparently some people in the Q group, I don't know who they are. Like I said, I've kind of gotten out of that. I see it come up, though, from time to time. And apparently they were stalking Avenatti at his office area there. I guess it's in Huntington Beach or one of those there in California. And posted the picture of them doing it. Really? if military intelligence has anything to do with Q, it's a rogue unit from the NSA. Yeah, it's a rogue unit from the NSA that's using front companies like Kinetic. I've talked about Able Danger Discovered, Kinetic in UK, Digital Services, something or other, that Monograph tracked their ISPs and their data to up in Washington State and Seattle, I believe, and into like the Washington Pundit with the Obama Foundation. Washington Pundit claims to be a conservative paper. It's a front company as well, looks like to me, and several others. Access to the Twitter keys, knowing how to obtain information. There could be some rogue elements of the Q group out of the NSA, and there's a whole situation that has developed on that. The Q group, apparently, according to a report by Wayne Madsen, a lot of people say, "Oh, Wayne Madsen." Again, you got to take this stuff and then compare it to what's happening in the real world and see what's happening. The original Q group in the NSA, well, its mission was to discredit and to change the narrative to keep people from questioning government involvement in 9/11. Well, what better group to go after President Trump? Pretending to be a conservative outfit, but really destroying his base and setting him up for a big discredit. So it looks like, I think Nathan Stoltman of Lift the Veil interviewed this Cappy guy, and then Unirock interviewed him, or went over that entire interview. And there have been some other people that looked at this. And I guess Cappy claimed that he did report this pedophilia that he was aware of to the government. And when pressed who in the government he contacted, he said it was the NSA. And then he was asked, well, what do you mean by the NSA? And he says, well, I contacted the Q group. Well, all of us busted out laughing at that point. So as I've said for a long time, these guys running the Q thing could very well have contacts in the rogue intelligence community. It's not the good guys helping Trump. It is not. It is not. It is not. We've heard that from multiple good sources. Pascal, Don Jr.'s friend, Jacob Wohl, and then some other situations as well, that's not the case. It looks like it is this rogue group, which Baruch the Scribe, of course, also said. He goes by Paul Ferber on Twitter. He explained early on that the original 4chan was hacked, of course, and that it was taken over. And he says it looks like these current guys are getting information, but it's not good information. It's obviously, I mean, it might be good in that those things occur, but it's primarily being used to hurt Trump and the Trump base. And that's now, it's moved in. When the whole thing with VOP happened down in Tucson, I said, look out, this is designed to hurt Trump and Trump followers. That's what this is about. It's to taint them, to discredit them. And that was kind of, I guess, almost like a beta test. They saw how it worked, and then they baited in the rest, which was also run by Q. Q was certainly pushing that. And here we go now, this whole thing with pedophilia and the way it's being pushed. And like I said, this entire Q movement will ultimately be used, as it is now, to try to discredit conservatives, constitutional republic advocates, Trump supporters. That's really where it's going, and we're seeing the fruits of that now. Hopefully I explained that well enough. Okay, if you're a supporter of Q, I don't mind if you watch it, but don't try to convince me of it here. I know too much about it now. I don't even want to go there. Why don't I try to convince you? Because cultists you can't convince. Because then I mean, I've seen it in other cults before. There's no way you can talk a cultist out of their incorrect ideas. There's no way to do it. I'm not going to try. So don't come on here and tell me about, the coyote saying something is coming and it will be significant. Q, I don't want to hear it, okay? Don't bring that stuff here. As a matter of fact, I'm just going to block you, okay, just to prove my point. I don't want to see that. I'm tired of it. Do not come here and tell me anything that Q says. Q is a LARP. Worse, it's being controlled probably by a rogue element of the NSA. Probably rogue members of the old Q group that probably got outed by Rogers before he left. And they're pulling this crap outside the system to ruin President Trump. Okay, so don't bring that Q stuff to me anymore. I'm done with it. Okay? 40,000 indictments. Nope. Hillary, you're wrong. We've already shown what that is. Go look at Unirock. Go look at, there have been some others. If there aren't that many indictments. The people who counted those things up, from the lawyers have explained that now. It's all of the associated filings and all that. You've lumped all of that into one group. There might be a few thousand indictments that are actual reality, and they are most likely MS-13. I kind of debunked that, or didn't believe that at first when I heard it back in, I guess it was December. So I was still in that mode that, I think it really is happening. And then, things didn't add up right because in a law enforcement capacity with sealed indictments, you kind of know how those things work. And things weren't making sense. So most likely, those are all of the different filings that have to do with probably a few pedophiles, maybe, and certainly human traffickers, drug traffickers, MS-13 members, things like that. I do believe that's the case. So 40,000 indictments, no such thing. Sorry, it ain't true. The way people have looked at PACER, and I don't pretend to know what PACER is, but good attorneys that deal with all of that are telling us now that that's not true. They've done the research, and there are not 40,000 individual sealed indictments. They don't exist. Kevin Shipp, Rack Attack Gamer. Roy, Kevin Shipp. I saw you talking to him and trying to hook up with him. Can you give details? I'll tell you a little bit. I don't want to embarrass Kevin at this point because I'm a notorious character. I don't know if he wants to connect his train with mine. I'm nowhere near the intelligence guy he is and was. I remember I was on the military side, technically mostly a tactical intelligence officer when I functioned as that. There were some other exceptions which I won't go into, but a little different, battlefield intelligence compared to real clandestine operatives. Although I dabbled in that a little bit, but I don't like to go there. The point is I'm nothing like Kevin Shipp. I have nowhere near that kind of experience. However, I know enough about it that I can talk shop with him to some extent. And I wanted to touch base with him, and I don't want to give out any information yet. But I'm hoping to have him on. I'll just put it that way. I'm hoping that he will agree to come on my rather insignificant, live stream show. I don't know if he will do that. He probably wants more exposure than that, and rightly so. His story is something that needs to be told from sea to shining sea. They've tried to kill him and his family. He's been under a lot of danger, as most of you know. And I did send a tweet to him the other day, and he did respond. I have not heard back from him, though, but in case he's watching this, that's basically what I'd like to talk to him about. And having been a military officer, I will be able to understand a lot of what he says, which I already do understand. And I think we'll have a good conversation. So that's kind of what I'm looking at. But there are some problems with that. I know he has to protect his communications. He's, the IC, the CIA has been very nasty with him. I'm certain that they would get rid of him if they could. So he's got to be careful. So I don't know where that's going to go. But yeah, we're kind of talking right now. Okay, so I'll just leave it at that. Actually, I've been on Able. Laurel P. asked me to invite Able Danger. He's awesome too. Yeah, I've actually been interviewed by Field at least once, maybe twice. I've had some of his agents on this program. I haven't had Field on for a couple of reasons. One is that he's so busy. And he just got, well, he's been trying for a number of months, years really, to get his wife a visa in the U.S. And of course Obama and his Field's sister, Christine Marcy, who was partially responsible for developing the SES, and she's very much opposed to Field and his revelations about what's going on in the government. That he couldn't get his wife here, and now he's finally done that with the help of President Trump. God bless President Trump for doing that. He opened the door so that could happen. So Field, it's got to be like a honeymoon. So in other words, what I'm saying is I don't know that I'll ever get Field back on the program. And there are some other things that occurred, which I'll just say I have a lot of respect for Field, what he's done for the people in his organization and the work they've done. I'm personal friends with a couple of them, but I'm a handful. A lot of people, think that maybe it's best not to get too close. So, despite the fact that I don't believe in the guilt by association nonsense. The finest planet. Yeah, Abel is. Yeah, Field McConnell's a tough cookie and a bit on the rude side. He is. He absolutely is. But that's what makes him so endearing. He's not going to lie to you. He'll just tell you. And so a lot of people can't handle that. I can. I don't object to that. But I'm probably as close as Field wants me to get. Let's put it that way to him. So. Mark Valid, we need to stand up against the banning of our free speech. Absolutely, we have to get Congress and the president to hold these guys accountable. They are like utilities. We don't have any other options. They've advertised themselves as a place for free speech. Yes, they have rules, of course, but they're very selective in how they enforce those. And we've proven that they're going after Trump supporters and constitutional republic supporters and those types of people. We've shown that, Christians, etc. I mean, you can be an ISIS guy, a member of Islam, and call for the beheading of people and killing of Christians and Jews and the president and all that, and nothing happens to them. Right? You get my gist. Let's see. Ruth Kessler, have you seen my tagged tweets? Didn't I answer you the other day, Ruth? I think I did. I don't know. What is your... Maybe you don't want to tell me what your handle is on Twitter. I'm not certain of that. You might want to let me know. Send a DM, if try that, okay? I haven't seen them. I can't say that I have. I did answer you, I think, on here the other day. All right, let's see. All right, we've been going for almost an hour. Okay, hold on. Tricky Vicky. Roy always skips my comments, but that's okay with me. My comments are brash and honest and require too much thought. No, it's not that I'm intentionally trying to pass over you, Tricky Vicky. It's hard to do this without somebody else helping me and reading the comments and telling me about it. Uni's very good. He can go back and forth. He reads almost every one. I'm just not that good at that, and I apologize. Why don't you post one of your questions here? I'll look for it right now while I'm talking. Tricky Vicky, I'll address you directly, okay? I don't mean to miss any of your comments. There is no question that's hard for me to answer. I might not know the answer, but I'm not avoiding answering it, if you know what I mean there. So Tricky Vicky, go ahead and ask what you want, and I'll look for it here. Okay, Blurred Lines is asking what my schedule is. I don't really have. I try to do live streams Tuesday and Thursdays, starting sometime between 7 and 8 Mountain Time, but that's not absolute. And then I'll do updates, when I get the chance from time to time, and do recorded ones as well. I really don't have a set schedule, and I'm sorry about that. I do try to do the Tuesday and Thursday morning deal. Tricky Vicky, thank you, Roy, for the explanation. I seldom ask questions. Yeah, and somebody like you who's really concerned about it, I would like to answer if I can. So. Yeah, Thomas 6 says, go ahead, Vicky, you got the floor. So yeah, go ahead, Vicky, shoot away, and I'll look for it here as you put it in. George K is asking me, Roy, do you think Q is Israeli intelligence? I look at the entire IC as working together. Yes, they have their information that they do for their own, deep staters and governments and all that, but in reality, they're all one team. They really are, at least in the Western world, between Israel, Saudis, UK, Australia, the Five Eyes deal. So I do believe that there are rogue elements that are involved in this Q thing at this point. Yeah, for sure. How much Israeli intelligence Mossad is, I don't know, but something there is for sure. Yeah, something's going on there, and it's not good. The whole Q thing has turned into a very, very bad deal. Larissa Sosa says Q is not Mossad, not directly, and I would agree with that. But there might be some influence there. For instance, we saw at least Israeli training being conducted in their tactics by the Bureau of Land Management at Bundy Ranch. So it exists. It does. Julian Green, what do you think of Benjamin Fulford? I don't follow him. I have a good friend or two that do, but I've never seen the necessity of doing that. I've never seen it really benefit. Any discussion helps to broaden your mind. I don't think you should shut anybody down because you disagree with them on one or 2 points. If that were the case, I wouldn't listen to the New York Times. I wouldn't look at it, like I've said before. But I don't pay a lot of attention to Fulford. Occasionally, I'll see something that he's done, but I don't actively seek his information. ICE does enforce the immigration and naturalization laws. That's exactly what they do. And some other things, but that's about right. Q can't spell. I've noticed that a couple times too. Maybe a problem, maybe not. But when you throw everything together, I just don't bother. Okay, Tricky Vicky. Do ordinary criminal laws apply anymore to government employees in the United States incorporated in the sovereign city of Washington, D.C.? Short answer, no. Not that they shouldn't, by the way the Constitution is written, but you notice how they keep trying to say that the Constitution was taken over first by this thing in 1879, if you've studied that, and then the Federal Reserve Act of 1913. Then, of course, in 1933, we've seen some other information about how the Constitution took a second place to the Corporation of the United States, all run out of Britain. My answer to that is always the same, and what it is this, that the Constitution is the supreme law of the land, and you cannot toss it aside. You cannot make it subservient to any other treaty, period, or any other thing. That's how I look at it. Unfortunately, the leftist Marxists don't look at it that way, and a lot of so-called conservatives don't either. So in answer to your question, Tricky Vicky, I think it's prima facie. I think it's manifestly shown to us that there are two sets of laws in the United States. There are those that they force on us and they use against us, and we better not even spit on the sidewalk. And then there are those for people like Hillary Clinton and James Clapper and James Comey, et cetera, who have oaths to the SES and to the cabal, and they basically are untouchables. Yes. Unfortunately, I do believe that that's the case. I'm not saying it should be that way. And I would really hope that at some point in time, Trump can break that barrier and go after these bastards and bitches. Right now, he's trying to right the ship still. And we've got this election coming up. It's like 9/11. Trump gave his understandings of the 9/11 buildings, and his own architects and guys were telling him, "Oh, those buildings didn't come down because of those planes." He knows that, but he's not talking about it very much. You notice? He really isn't, and I think it's because you're really striking at the heart of the devil's kingdom with that. Look at the havoc that it brought. And it goes along with these other laws and things too. The 1879 deal, the incorporation of the U.S., the 1933, 1913, all of that. And to say that the Constitution is the supreme law of the land is one thing. To enforce that is another. And we really have to get to the point where we can enforce the Constitution as the supreme law of the land. And I think he's trying to go that way. A lot of people say, Roy, you shouldn't give Trump that much benefit of the doubt because he has all these connections. Again, I'm not into guilt by association. I go by what I see, the fruits. And most of his fruits, 90% of his fruits, as far as I'm concerned, are good. I'm concerned about him not going after the chemtrails, the 5G. He's just now, I guess, he's complained about the MSM and their attacks on him and the fact that they're fake news, but he's never really gone and tried to protect the First Amendment. Really protect it. Certainly Sessions hasn't, who should be, and apparently Trump doesn't have any command and control over Sessions. So, why do those things happen? Possibly because he's a little bit of the neophyte in the political realm, but he's a fast learner. I think he knows now. I still don't know why he chooses these people into his cabinet that he does in these different positions. But I backed off being too critical of Trump. As most of you know, I was really, really hard on him early on. And I'm watching him closely. I don't like what's going on in Syria. A regime change in Iran, if their people can pull that off, great. It's going to be a bad deal for a lot of them as far as the process. The end result could be good, but a lot of people are going to get hurt and killed, and I don't like that. The Iranian people, the Persians, really is what they are. They're really, really neat people by and large. It's the crazy religious leaders, the cultic religious leaders. Does that sound familiar? Yeah, the cultic religious leaders, that's the problem. And eventually people will try to rise above that, but not until after a lot of chaos and mayhem and all that has occurred. So anyway, yeah, I don't know if we'll ever get back to that. I think Trump's trying to. I don't know if he'll be successful. We need to pray for that because if we don't get back to it, we're going to be having some real bad troubles in the future. Look, Hillary's going to run again. I think everybody's seeing that. Can you believe that? What an embarrassment. Talk about an embarrassment. Okay, Rack Attack Gamer, Trump going after plastic weapons, 3D printable. That's the thing. Government wants to control everything. They've tried to control weapons in the past. You can't have swords in, medieval times or whatever. The First and Second Amendments need to be inviolable, and that is. Look what Trump said, after the shooting in Parkland. I go for taking the guns and then doing due process. Okay, a lot of people said he was trying to set people up with that. I don't care if he was or not. It was a bad soundbite. It was a bad camera moment because we started seeing the red flag laws coming up after that, and they figured that Trump wouldn't do anything about it, and he hasn't. Sessions hasn't gone into any of these places and said they're violating the Constitution and sued them for it, or found them in criminal, doing criminal things to suppress the Constitution and the Bill of Rights of the people. So yeah, things like that I have a lot of problems with. I pray every day. I'll just be honest with you guys. I try to shoot straight. I pray every day, maybe not formally, but in my heart and mind, that Trump isn't pulling the wool over our eyes, that he's not putting us to sleep. And if I wasn't honest about that, I wouldn't be a real American, because we're supposed to be skeptical. No matter how good our leaders are, we've got to be careful. We've got to be careful. There's I might as well bring this up for some of you. It's weird stuff. It is weird stuff. There's a lot of symbolism in it. As a matter of fact, I've watched probably a half a dozen or so of them now, and I'm not really sure what to think about them. There's a Twitter handle called Rogue Kill, or Kill Rogue, or something like that. It's with a white rabbit on Twitter. And it's because of that account that I found this one. And this rogue kill said, go look at this, and he's telling all of his Twitter followers to do this. Go look at this count called Sebastian C. I don't even know if I should give it any airtime, but now that we're here, Sebastian C, it's spelled out. If you look at the capital letters, a lot of people say, is it Sebastian Gorka? Who's Sebastian, all this. If you look at the capital letters, it spells out Satan C. Okay? Some people have been trying to figure out, does the C stand for Clinton? What's going on here? But if you go look at these videos, and they've been going on since before Q showed up. And right around when Q showed up. And there are some real, it is weird stuff. Some of it's just downright damn scary. And when I first started watching it, you'll see what I'm talking about. It shows Trump as this, what looks like a very malevolent king sitting on a throne. And you hear the narrator, and it sounds like a very evil voice. I'm not sure that's what it is, because I understand a little bit about the still small voice and some other things. But it says, do you believe in me now? It's really eerie. It sent chills down me, and I had to stop and look at everything that was being said. Now, I don't know what to make of it, but the last one that came out was a silhouette of a guy in a fedora type hat, looking away from the camera, I believe, and he's talking. It's the same guy that's narrated it before, who says, do you believe in me now? And he says, Trump will succeed. He will. But there's still some parts to it that really scared the crap out of me by the way it was almost like, I just don't know what to make of it right now. I really, really don't. Why do I bring that up? Because I do look at everything. I try to look at all angles and try to understand what's going on. But this Sebastian C, basically, I think the bottom line is it's saying that Trump has some dark sides, like we all do, but that he will do the right thing in the end. I think that's what it's about. I think he was a cabal, at least the cabal member, and I've talked about this before, that the cabal thought that he was their man. And then they found out that he isn't. Okay? I think that's where it's going. Sebastian uses some Hebrew. He uses some hash code. And I can't really decipher the hash code because I don't have the key to do that. That might be special messages to somebody else. I'm not an expert at that. But the Hebrew, I looked at it, and you've heard Trump say enough is enough, and other people, enough is enough on all of this cabal stuff that's going on. One of the Hebrew things that's written in one of the description boxes or underneath is DD. Well, that's how you pronounce it. It's a dalet and a yod, and what it means is enough. So right there, enough. There's no verb. It's intimated. Enough is enough. Enough. And then there's another one where I saw, there's actually a lot of this different Hebrew in there, which Hebrew can be used as a code, kind of like the Navajos did, because there are different levels of meaning. Okay, and so there's another one, and basically it said, it's talking about Trump. And I'm not saying I believe this, but it's interesting because I talked about the types and shadows before. It says Yeshua HaMashiach. Okay, and then there's another one that says David HaMashiach. Do you understand what those are? I'm keeping an eye on it. So if you want to go and look at that stuff, some of it, honestly, if you want to go to bed and have nightmares, watch those things, because they will give you nightmares, but they're also very thought-provoking. Remember, there's a scripture, and it says, I know a lot of you don't want to hear this because you don't think God can do anything evil, but he says in the scriptures that he created good and evil. The instructor, the ninth letter of the alphabet, the tet, which is linked to Satan, is to teach us. And to go down into the abyss is a scary, frightening thing. But at the same time, good for you. I just got a message and somebody's watching this. Good for you guys. I'm proud of you. So, you go into this abyss and you see what's there. And it's sort of like going into heaven, too. A lot of people know that I'm familiar with Kabbalah and Heckalot, and not the black magic. I mean, I'm aware of the black Kabbalah. I know what that is. But the true Kabbalah was used so that you could use the Hebrew letters and the sounds to ascend through the different consciousnesses. I don't know how else to put it. Heavens, if you will. The Heckalot was used by the ancient prophets to actually ascend into the higher kingdoms. And there's a difference between the two. I've explained before. Kabbalah was kind of a lesser form of the Heckalot. And it's not evil. It can be used for evil like anything else is, because just like anything, there's a good and a bad side, and it's what side you use. But when you take in the Heckalot, when you would use the divine names, Heckalot means mansions or chambers. Jesus talked about, in my Father's house there are many mansions. I've talked about this before. And you use the sacred names to ascend through the different kingdoms, the different heavens, dimensions, however you want to look at it, until you can get to the throne of glory, which is a very difficult task, okay? But the point is that there's a way to ascend the good side, okay? But conversely, you can also use it to descend into the evil side. In both cases, what you're supposed to do is go and then return. You're not to stay. You're not to stay too long, because if you stay too long, obviously, you're going to be influenced, probably negative if you're on the bad side, right? And if you're on the good side, you'll probably go insane, because it's just too overwhelming. I mean, it's like, imagine being in the presence of God and being fed some of the information from Him. It can be overwhelming. So the concept is, I'm sorry I'm taking so long to explain this, but you go and return. You don't stay there. We are begotten sons and daughters of God. There's some of this that might be something weirder than that, like the Clintons and the Podestas and those folks. Very possible. It's serpent blood, and I don't want to get into people saying, "Oh, Roy believes in reptiles." That's not the point. It's what's in their heart and mind that matters. But anyway, anyway, so we have to brush up against evil. We just don't want to absorb it. Does that make sense? Boy, I talk too much sometimes. Okay. Okay, I got to tell you a story here. I see somebody asking a question, and I understand it completely. Karen Willison. What if your child was stolen today and abused and tortured? Happening to a child this minute. Where's God? That's a very profound question, and it's a very important question. I don't know that I can give you the answer to that, Karen, because I don't know God's mind. He gives me portions of it, and he gives us all portions of it. He gives us all. He divides up those talents and those gifts. Not all of us possess all of them, and none of us can really know the mind of God. And like you, that's one of the ones I don't understand. It bothers me all the time. I saw a picture the other day of Che Guevara. It was on Twitter. I think Matt Bracken put it out. And Che Guevara is killing these young girls. He's already shot one. She's on the ground dead. He's in the process of shooting another, and then he's going to kill the third one. And I thought, where's God? How can He stand this? And I think about that all the time. I do. But this sphere is unlike any other, apparently. The concept of free will has to work here so that judgment and mercy can work. And it's not a pleasant experience. It is not. It's not meant to be. Oh, there are beautiful things in the world. The mountains, the sky when they're not, spraying it. Our contacts with our loved ones and all that. But all this is fraught with frailty. And yes, it doesn't make any sense. But it's what defines us. Remember I quoted the Batman deal. And really it's what free agency is all about. It's not what I hide inside, but what I do that defines me. Wow. So this is the place for definition. It's not pleasant. It's why a lot of the angels, when they were asked if they wanted to come and do this, they said, not only no, but hell no. Right? Yeah. And I'll add another part of this. I had a very close relationship. I was very much in love with a woman a few years ago. And I found out some things about her. And I thought I could fix it. There's no way I could. But every man thinks he can do it. There's no way. This was after my wife died. I met this lady about 2 years later. And I couldn't even believe she'd give me the time of day. And I won't give you a whole lot of information about it. Absolutely beautiful. But she had a stone cold heart, really. I mean, she had some soft sides, but she had been around. And that's all I'll say about it. Other than I found out she was involved in some things. And one day she came home and she was crying. And she says, "Why does God let little children get hurt?" I could tell you some more, but she wanted to blame God for not helping the little children. And I said to her, God was trying to help the little children. He put you there to do something about it. Did you do something about it? I'll just leave it at that. Hey, we've been going for an hour, almost an hour and a half. I better shut this down. I hope I got to a few more of your questions this time than I normally do. And I know I'm long-winded. Man, I go on and on and on. What? I'm sucking wind. Roy, you mentioned you were gay years ago. Is this what? I'm sucking wind? Are you I've seen you around before. Forgive me if I've never said I was gay. Ever. Oh, no. I'm not even going to go down that road. Okay, I don't know what you're talking about. No, I'm not gay. My God. I am, I'm not using God's name in vain. That's not his name. Blasphemy is something entirely different than what most people think it is. No, I'm not gay. I am a committed heterosexual, and I have been all my life. I will always be that way, even after I leave this earth. Probably don't understand that, but I don't like little children as far as, intimate relationships. They're children. We take care of children. We raise them. We let them grow. We let them, I like women. I like full-bodied, I don't mean fat, well-developed women. Okay? There's no way I'm gay. And my history, and you can see it on the internet. You can go Google me. I am a committed heterosexual. Okay? No way I'm gay. However, I have been approached by gays many times, and it did not end well for them. Okay? I'll just put it that way. It did not end well with them. One guy ended up with his teeth out at the yeah, he grabbed me. It was an assault on his part. After this happened, he's missing his front teeth, and that happened at Grauman's Chinese Theater in L.A. I think it was called Mann's Chinese Theater at the time. Another one, I don't want to get into a lot of details, but he tried to come on to me, and no, I'm not kidding you. He knew he better never do it again. Okay. And there have been a couple of other times. I don't know how far I should go with this. I will say that I was a government worker tried to molest me when I was 11. I won't go into any details. Okay? But I know a lot about it. No, I am not gay. Am I being emphatic about that? I consider it to be an abomination. Okay? And I don't care what the reason is, chemicals or whatever, in the water, what they're trying to do to us. We have a mind, and we can act against our negative impulses if we will use a little effort. And I don't believe in allowing little girls and little boys to decide what their sex is. That's absurd. This whole transgenderism movement is a satanic. And where did the idea come from? There are bits and pieces of it in the scriptures. This is why I find so much fault in Christianity for what they've done. They denigrate the human body when in Genesis it says the man and the woman were naked and were not ashamed. And yet we condone violence in movies and in world, and we denigrate and we find fault with the naked human body. Why? This is a perversion of the Christian teaching. Frankly, it's a perversion of the Christian teaching. Jesus is quoted by a lot of these folks, including the Pope. There's no male and female in the resurrection. You don't know what you're talking about. That's a euphemism of the time that had to do with law, not with sex. But at any rate, no, I'm a committed heterosexual, okay? I hope I've made that abundantly clear. And all you got to do is, I've got pictures of me with, I saw the other day, as a matter of fact, I've got it here. No, I don't want to do that to him. I won't do that to him. But a lot of people have seen it. You see pictures of me with adult women, okay? If I'm with kids, they're kids, okay? There is a difference. And, I have male friends, obviously. I have guy friends. But I'm a heterosexual, committed, proven, prima facie, manifestly so. End of story. Gay. That's almost as bad as accusing me of pedophilia. Not quite as bad as that. But if I've been emphatic about anything since I've been on YouTube, it's about government corruption, the gay rights movement, LGBTQ, and the evils of that, and pedophilia. Come on. Just come on, jeepers. All right. Okay. I'm done. Okay. I'm done for the day. Hopefully I got around to a few of you. Gloria Young, I believe you, Roy. You don't have to believe me. It's prima facie. It's manifestly the case. Okay. As a matter of fact, dang, I should have brought it up here and I didn't. Give me a second. Okay. I'll be right back. Just give me a second. Okay. I showed you this book the other day, right? Okay. I'm going to show you a picture out of this. And some people are going to go, There was no deceit, no fraud. Look at this. I'm going to have to make sure that you're seeing this just right. So let me pull this up. You see that? You see any little kids in there? You see any child brides? I like women. Grown, voluptuous, well endowed if possible. Very feminine, very womanly. Women. Proof positive. I'm done for the day. Thanks, everybody, for coming. I appreciate it. Like I was saying, my wife died in 2008 because I'd been in that, and then obviously because of all the pressures. Anyway, the point is I got out of it. My wife Carol, everything a woman could be, she was. No hard feelings towards the rest. A lot of things happen. I'm not going to explain all that. Get the book. Well, the book's too expensive. You don't want to try to buy that. But at any rate, no, I'm at the point where a good, a woman who meets all the criteria are what I'm looking for. I'm not in a hurry. If the right one comes along, but it's going to be a woman, okay? It's going to be a woman. And she'll have a very loyal, loving, devoted, pampering male companion if she decides. If there's one that decides on that, okay? No, I'm not gay. Jeez. All right. Keep your eyes on the horizon, your ears to the ground. Things are going to get weird, especially I talked about the Portland thing. You're going to see the left get more violent, especially as people like this Senate Intelligence Committee get exposed. Government people get exposed. Hopefully they do anyway. Need to keep your situational awareness on high. Prep, pray, stay out of the way. Self-defense, but don't do anything offensive. God bless you. God bless yours. God bless the Constitutional Republic of the United States of America. And of course, as always, God bless Donald Trump and all of his righteous endeavors. And may the Spirit of the Lord descend upon him as the dews from heaven and give him the spirit of discernment that he may know the right from the wrong and have the courage to do the right thing. Yes, constant prayer. Till next time, everybody out here.